Since 1998, our guest has been helping entrepreneurs discover the core strengths in themselves and their businesses, and also realize their full and true potential, combining passion and expertise in growing their businesses and attaining the freedom they deserve. He's an entrepreneur, he's a philanthropist, a mentor, a coach. Welcome to the show, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Thanks so much for inviting me to be on. This is great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here today, and I'm looking forward to having a soulful conversation about, building up our business, entrepreneurial freedom. That's one thing that's very important to me, and also, scaling and just expanding, basically. But before we get into all of that, I'd like to just know, like, from your background story, what led you all the way to, becoming an entrepreneur? What inspired you to, go on that journey?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been an entrepreneur my entire career, since my earliest businesses during school, as a kid, to today. 25 plus years of being an entrepreneur, and all of my businesses have been in the service of other entrepreneurs, and in one way or another, helping them to move towards that entrepreneurial freedom. It's something I get and love to help others to understand and move towards as well.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. And you're doing a great job with that, because I was, when preparing for this episode, I was going through reviews of people, you've helped in the past. And that brought up a question in my mind. Like, can you just briefly tell us about the importance of having, mentors when we are on this entrepreneurial journey? What's the importance of, being in a group that helps us and supports us on this journey?
It's interesting. When people want to test drive our mastermind group, they usually bring two different things into the room, right? So one is we all have what I call your superpower. There's the thing you're really good at, right? The thing that you find easy in life or in business that others just don't understand why it's so easy for you, right? So that's like your superpower, your knowledge, the things that you know, right?
Yeah.
People also usually bring in a second thing, which is their big question, right? This is the thing keeping them up at night. This is the thing blocking them, that if they feel they could only get an answer to this question, they could be unstuck and move forward, right? And we've all felt that. But when you've got a question, you can seek out mentors and experts. You can search online. You can read a book, take a course. There are ways to find answers to your questions. But the third category is actually the really interesting one, right? So we have the stuff you know. We have the question of the things that you don't know. But the biggest part of that pie of knowledge is actually this third category of what you didn't know. So, how do we expose ourselves to that world of knowledge of the things we don't know, those blind spots, right? Well, when you surround yourself with good mentors or coaches, a good peer group, or a true proper mastermind, that's where you get that collective wisdom of those who've been there, who've done that, and are on that journey, and can help you to get unstuck, but also can help you to find out what lies ahead, what some of those hidden opportunities are, and what some of those dangerous pitfalls might be.
Oh yeah, I love that thought part, actually. Like, finding out those blind spots, I guess they could be very dangerous, because we don't know about them, and they could be the ones that denying us from growing and expanding our businesses. Yeah.
So often that's true. And so there's the motivation forward, right? The things we're drawn to, and there's the motivation from behind, what we want to move from, right? Like we're simple lizard brains at times. We move towards pleasure away from pain, right? We move towards the carrot away from the whip. So there are certainly things that the pitfalls we can avoid, right? The fear of the unknown. But really, like, the biggest growth and the biggest opportunities I see again and again are actually from the ideas that you're exposed to. You see what other people are working on in their business and their life that you didn't even know existed, right? And so when we see new businesses get launched, new sales channels added, big personal growth and pivots and changes, almost always that comes not from an individual member's hot seat talking about themselves, but from them listening and asking good questions as others are sharing what's going on in their business and their life. So those opportunities are so invaluable.
Yes. And that leads me, to want to know about Bay Area Mind. It's a mastermind group that you founded. Like, how do you use these groups to help people find out their blind spots? Like, how do you use this group to help entrepreneurs to find the freedom that they desire?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? This idea of a mastermind really was put forth to the public almost 100 years ago in the 30s by a famous author, Napoleon Hill. He wrote, one of his best known books is Think and Grow Rich. And in there, chapter 10 is called The Power of the Mastermind. And so we follow in the footsteps of that format of what he introduced to people then, in that when you surround yourself with like-minded individuals, right, growth-focused, working in harmony, right, towards some sort of common goal, in this case, entrepreneurial freedom and business ownership, right? The combination of the knowledge in the room is not this additive result, right? If you think about a time you're brainstorming or working on solving a problem, right? You working on it and someone else working on it on your own is not the same as you working on it together, right? As you develop ideas, what comes up and the solutions you find would never have been found by combining the results of two people working separately. That only comes up from that environment of being with others in the room with you. So the format we follow at the Bay Area Mastermind is once a month, business owners get together for a full day of working on their business, right? Now, this is in strict, opposition to the normal day-to-day working in your business, right? So working in your business is just the business that you've got to do to keep the lights on, get new customers, take care of them, and so on. Working on the business, that's where we're doing the visionary work, the bigger strategic planning, creating the systems, right? Talking about best practices so that you can grow the business and scale. And when you're in a room of people also on that journey, they're just going to the same destination, but taking a slightly different path. And so you can learn from how everyone else is getting there. And we do this through what we call our hot seats. And that's a time for members to, share what's going on in their business, what's working, what's not, and where they need help. And those conversations are really what lead us to get answers to our questions, get unblocked, get the resources we need, and find out about what might lie ahead.
Yeah, that sounds very smart. But for example, if, I have a very different business model, strategy, and someone else in the group or other people in the group have different, very individual ideas, is it possible to still learn from each other, even though our businesses are 1,000 miles apart from each other? And
so we actually, I very intentionally, as a facilitator for the group, seek out a diversity of businesses, right? So that means not just different industries, but even different business models. And so when we see what I call the cross-pollination of ideas, that's where we see these big pivots and big growth. So for example, we had, a retail store owner who has like a brick and mortar shop, and we have an e-commerce store owner who sells stuff on a website online, right? Both are successful. Both have sales channels. They have effective marketing. They have products that people are buying, right? So their businesses are successful, albeit in very different ways, right? But when these members are sharing what's going on in their business, the retail store owner is hearing from the e-commerce store owner how they're using an email list, and they're sending out emails. And every time they send email, money comes in the door. And they look at metrics like earnings per click and open rates and click-through rates and all these different numbers. The retail store owner doesn't know about any of that stuff, right? So over the course of the next month, she's able to put in place the ability to start collecting emails from people who come into the store with their permission, following up with them. And what do you know? She uses the same best practices the e-commerce store owner had to find out the hard way. And now when she sends email, money comes in. Whole new sales channel. Conversely, the e-commerce store owner who's doing things like working on their SEO and pay-per-click advertising and working with affiliates and all these traditional online strategies had never touched direct mail, right? Sending out paper in the mail to people that don't know you, right? The retail store owner has been doing that successfully, right? So suddenly the retail store owner is sharing best practices as it relates to direct mail. And the e-commerce store owner is learning and asking good questions and asking, how do you source your list? And do you send out a postcard or a letter or an envelope, or, how big, and is it color or black and white? And do I offer a discount or a promotion? Like, what are the best practices? And instead of learning this the hard and the expensive way, that e-commerce store owner gets all those best practices. And over the course of the next month between meetings, sources a list of people who'd never heard of the business before, has a mailing designed and fulfilled and sent out. And wouldn't you know, new customers come into the business and are buying online from a direct mail piece, right? So you had two successful businesses that have nothing to do with each other, sharing what's working in their business. That took off the blinders for other business owners who didn't even know about those sales channels or how to get started. They were then able to ask good questions, get good resources, implement those strategies in their business, and both added an entirely new sales channel that did not compete at all with their existing sales chain.
Yeah. Wow. And I see how, how the groups, like, a mastermind group could help us to grow our business successfully and also help us to increase our profits. By the time we're able to, tap into other channels of making income or, expanding our businesses. And that way we're able to even increase our, maybe gain margin also, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
You have this cross-pollination of business models as well,
Mm.
right? So, you have a traditional doctor, right, who has a private practice, right? But they're hearing from a business that has, a software company that has a subscription model. So that gets the doctor thinking, how do I add a subscription model to my business? And wouldn't you know, that doctor puts what we call a continuity program in place and now has predictable cash flow coming into the business that's not directly tied to what patients are coming into the practice, right? So you see this happen. We've had attorneys add on, annual programs for clients that traditional attorneys wouldn't do. They would just take, hourly work as it came their way and, have a continuity model built in for a traditional attorney. So that cross-pollination of even business models drastically grows businesses. And wouldn't you know it, to your point, there can be more profitability when you use other business models that your industry doesn't typically use.
Yes. Yeah. That puts it different definitions to thinking out of the box. Like you have other people out of your box that are thinking, and then you look out of your box and you see what they are doing.
Well, like, look, if you want to know how everyone does what you do, you can go to your trade shows, right? You can meet folks in your industry and see how everyone does stuff the same way. And you can make incremental improvements, right? Or if you really want to pivot, look at what people are doing outside your industry, but make sure they're really sharing with you like what's really going on in the business, so you understand the mistakes they made to get to the success that they've had.
Yeah. Right now, Jeremy, I'm thinking of a business owner. I don't know if you call it business owner or a self-employed person in a remote area somewhere far away that does not have access to a group or to, all of this information. How's the best way to tap into this information, to this, source of getting ideas from people and exchanging with people?
Yeah. So, keep in mind what people are going to share in public or online or in forums or, places like that is usually going to be like the rosy best outcome, scenarios, right? You're not getting the real inner workings of that. Those conversations usually only happen in a safe environment where people understand there's confidentiality and that what's said in the room stays in the room. So, there are mastermind groups, like even with our group, one of the things that came out of the pandemic was that people are able to join us virtually. So even though we still meet in person, we have folks who travel to us, who join us by Zoom, or even meet in virtual groups. And that allows folks from wherever they are to be part of a group. So if you can create your own group, right, of, qualified folks that you'd want to be in the room with, right? Or you can seek out and find existing groups that you can just plug into and join. But either way, the key here is you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who are growth focused, right? Who are open to both giving and receiving important, criticisms and feedback and opportunities and all, right? And who, understand this confidentiality importance that what's said in the room stays in the room, because then you can share the real numbers. You can share the real mistakes and the real problems, and you can do that openly for the benefit of all.
Yeah. I love that. I said I love that because for me so far, it has always been, watching videos on YouTube or TikTok or wherever to get this information, get ideas. But that exchange, that real exchange of, these are my mistakes, this is where I'm lacking, these are my real numbers, does not exist because, it's in the public and you don't want to share some confidential or sensitive information in the public.
Yeah. How often are people sharing openly all the mistakes they made and what actually is really working in their business and the real numbers behind it, and freely and openly sharing that and answering your questions? That usually is gated behind some door where if someone's sharing that, it's because they want you to buy into their program where they can teach you how to do what they did, right? Yeah. Otherwise, if people are seeing success on their own, they generally aren't sharing publicly, all those failures and all those wins and the play-by-play of how to get there.
Yes, that's true. Wow. I love that so much. I'm going to place the link to your website in the show notes of this episode for anyone who is interested, in reading more about the Mastermind group and how to get involved in the Bay Area Mastermind group. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, you can find all that over at bayareamastermind.com. So that's BAYAREA mastermind.com. And we have, guides there for how to find a mastermind group, how to create mastermind groups, how to run effective hot seats. We also have interviews there with folks who have found entrepreneurial freedom, where they talk about their journey of what it takes to get there. So all those resources, as well as like about our group and how to test drive the Bay Area Mastermind, is at bayareamastermind.com.
Awesome. So one more time, it's going to be in the show notes of this episode. So just click on it, copy the link, and get all the information that you need. For some listeners out there, their main goal or main aim is to expand their business, to make it bigger. But from your expertise and from your experience with groups, I would just like to know, like, what are some common mistakes that people have made, in this process of trying to scale up, trying to enlarge their business, so that we don't make the same mistakes and being frustrated at the end or giving up on that goal.
Yeah. So one of the common mistakes I see folks make is if they're solopreneurs, they have this belief that they can continue to do it all on their own. Well, if you keep doing everything on your own and grow the business, that usually just means you're putting in more time and you're more tied to the business. So you don't have to go at it alone. True entrepreneurial freedom comes from having a team of people following the systems you've put in place. So if you want to grow with people and systems, not just by putting more of your own time into the business, right? So that's one big one for folks looking to grow. The second is, don't go it alone thinking you can discover all the answers the hard way. You can. And speaking from someone, who has learned a lot of things the hard way, that is a way to do it. But there's working hard and there's working smart. When you work smart, you leverage the collective wisdom of others, right? So seek out mentors, seek out mastermind groups to surround yourself with folks who've been on this journey and are on the journey that want to help you be the best you that you can be. You'd be amazed whether it's parenting, business, life, sports, whatever it is, right? Find comfort in the fact that whatever challenge you're facing, someone else has probably been there before, right? Yeah. And many people have probably been there before and found different ways past the same block that you're feeling. And just sharing that with others and, asking for input and feedback can unlock so much knowledge you had no idea it was even out there.
Oh yeah, that's true. I'd like to go back to the first point that you made mention of, because I know a lot of people face this challenge, of starting a business on their own and, trying to build it on their own. But you said it's important. Of course, it will not go so far if you do it on your own. You have to involve other people. But in the initial stage, when you're not making profits yet, and the question comes up, okay, how do I pay these other people that system? Yes, I can put a system in place. But how do I pay the people that I want to get involved in the business so that I don't do it all on my own?
Yeah, so it's funny, right? Like, especially for earlier stage business owners or, solopreneurs, right? There's this idea of, well, I can't afford to hire someone, right? Well, if you look at the work you're doing during the day, there are probably things you're doing in your business that are $1 an hour tasks, right? Some things that might be $10 an hour tasks, some that are $100,000, $10,000, $100,000 an hour tasks, and so on, right? If you have to do all of the low paying work in your business also, how much time does that leave to do the more valuable work in your business, right? So for many business owners, it comes down to getting like a freelance bookkeeper to help out with that part of the business, or a customer service person, right? Or a graphic designer, or, a podcast editor, right? Any of these different roles give you back your time that you can, at least in the earlier stage, reinvest in the business to do higher value work, right? So I'm always so impressed with business owners who start a business in a space that they know nothing about, right? Like, I work with folks who started software companies that don't know anything about software. And that's really cool to me because it means they have to have someone else help them build the business. Their responsibility is to be the visionary, to have the idea of what it can be, and then to oversee the execution of that through others, right? So whatever business you're looking to get off the ground, think about what it will look like down the road. Right? What will those future roles in the business be? You can even, and we love doing this with business owners, map out your organizational chart of what those different roles will be, right? And right now in the business, it's going to be your name in all those boxes. You're doing all the things in the business. And that's fine for now. But at least you now have a map of what the other roles are. And you can ask yourself, all right, what on my list here can I have someone else do? And you simply create the system for that, adjust the system, and build from there. Because the fewer boxes that you're in, the better job you can do on growing the business.
Oh yeah, I love that so much. I mean, and I think another factor that comes into place, some business owners, they grow up their business to a point that it feels so personal to them, and they are not able to let go of some roles or delegate properly, and then they want to do everything because they believe they can do it best, basically.
Yeah. It's funny. I realized, years ago when I started talking about entrepreneurial freedom and introduced this whole concept, right? I realized people thought I was saying you should build a business so you don't have to do anything in it, and you should be off on a desert island sipping drinks with, umbrellas in it. And like, that's not at all what I'm saying, right? We're entrepreneurs at heart. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love the game of business, right? So, most of the folks I work with are also serial entrepreneurs. Even the business they're launching now is not going to be their last, right? So when you get back that entrepreneurial freedom, which really is the freedom of time and choice, you can use that time to launch another business, to give back time in your community, to be with your family, to pursue a hobby. But like, you can also use that time to reinvest in your business and do the part of the business that you love, right? There's probably some clients you love working with. No one's saying to stop that. You can still do that, right? If it brings you fulfillment and joy in your business, you can and should continue to do that work in the business. But for all of us, there are parts of the business we don't enjoy doing, but still have to get done. Those are roles that other people can help do to give you back the time to spend how you like in your business or outside the business.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Wow. So imagine, Jeremy, we've put all of this in place already. Like, we are in a group, like, the Bay Area Mastermind group. We're getting information. We have people and system in place helping us. We are also, doing our best also to ensure the business grows. But sometimes, realities, life kicks in and the business gets stuck. Like, we're doing everything that's in the playbook, but we're not making any progress. What do we do at that point when we feel stuck?
If for our listeners who are feeling stuck, know this, like, you're not alone, right? All of us get stuck, right? If you've ever heard the story about, the duck that everyone sees going across the surface of the water, and it's just so effortlessly gliding across that glassy, smooth water. But what no one sees is underneath, the web feet kicking and paddling and the swirls and turns of water underneath that make that duck look so effortlessly floating across the water, right? So, you might think that the rest of the world got it together, and those that are successful, it comes easy to them. The reality is everyone worked really, really hard and has gotten stuck again and again and again. But remember, just like any board game that you play, right, where it seems like you might be getting set back or you might be, quote, losing, right? Business is a game, right? And we're going to get stuck. We're going to have setbacks. The question is, what can we learn from the setback? How quickly can we recover from that setback, right? And so if you are feeling stuck, you're not alone, right? Be open and honest and vulnerable with those around you about where you're stuck. You'd be surprised at people in your life who can help you to get unstuck, right? The people who've been there, who can introduce you to someone who's been there, that can help you to get unstuck. But do that sooner. Don't wait until it's too late. Get that help sooner to get unstuck. That's where you can find the opportunity to really move forward.
Oh, yeah. Open up about the issue, and then people help you. I guess that applies to our personal life also. Whenever we're feeling
so much,
yeah,
so much, yeah.
Like go for therapy, or meet a counselor, meet a mentor, meet your coach, and the person could help you.
Well, it doesn't help just to pack this down right inside and say, like, this will be fine. It'll work itself out. It'll get better with time. Not everything gets better with time, right? If your business is hemorrhaging cash, right, or it's not making money, you don't just keep doing the same thing over and over again, hoping you'll get a different result, right? And one of the challenges with business that people don't like to talk about is sometimes when you find something that's working, over time it starts to become less effective and works less well, right? So as much as we all want to have a set and forget turnkey business that you just let run, the reality is the world changes, right? The online ad campaign you had becomes less effective. I remember for one of my previous businesses, we were building that. This is going back many years. We were building this using Google AdWords, and we spent $1,000. We got $2,000-$3,000 in new business. So we spent $10,000 and we got $20,000 in new business, right? We spent $20,000 and we got $30,000 to $40,000 in business. And for those of you doing the quick math, you can see that's not scaling, right? Even though we put more money out, the return was we were still ROIing it, but the overall return was getting less. But we had it working, it was running well, and we moved on and focused on other parts of the business. And then suddenly that $40,000 ad spend was bringing in $45,000 in new business. And then that $40,000 ad spend was bringing in $40,000. And then it actually tipped, and that 40 was bringing in 35 and 30. And it started to become less and less effective. The same ads, the same landing page, the same funnel, all of it was the same. We set and forget it, right? And the effectiveness got worse and worse. So, in that instance, we ended up bringing on a company who specialized in, in managing these kinds of accounts. And right off the bat, they were able to cut our ad spend by, over 50% and more than double the effectiveness of it. So it double-endedly got better, right? And that was fantastic. We now had somebody who we were paying to monitor that and monetize it and handle it, right? So that's one of those areas where, we had something that was working, it became less effective, right? So we then could do a few things. We could ourselves try and figure it out. We could just stop doing it, right? We could throw more money at it. We could give it more time, or we bring in someone who their superpower, their area of genius is running those kinds of accounts profitably and doing a good job, right? And so in that case, that was how we were able to unstick that part of the business and move forward.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that tip. And you talked about something that I would like to ask about, and that's about, you could wait a little bit, for example, or stop something or just continue. And personally, I have this challenge of, trying out a new idea, and I don't know how long I should wait before I could see the result. Putting out the Google advert out there, and I have to wait and see, okay, will it work? Will it pick up with time? Or have I made a total mistake and I should just count my losses right now already? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with, waiting and knowing when to stop and when to just adjust?
Yeah. So it's funny because this question comes up a lot, right? For folks who are testing, right? And I love experiments, right? So in your business, you should constantly be testing, right? Test. The important thing is make sure you know what you're testing, have a hypothesis, meaning what you think is going to happen, right? And have a definition of success, how you know when you found an answer. And what you're looking for is what we call statistical significance, right? So a common mistake I see business owners do, well, there's a few, right? One is they'll try out 10 different ads, right? All vastly different and looking to see which one performs better. Well, you might find one or two that perform better, but you don't really know why. So how do you incrementally improve on that, right? Whereas if you test, for example, it's the exact same ad, but you're trying 4 different images, the variable you're testing is the image, right? And you're looking for everything else being equal, which image performs the best. Then you might try changing the headline. You might try changing the color, right? But test one thing at a time, right? So that's one mistake I see is testing too many different variables at once. The second is not being mindful of statistical significance, right? People will throw some money at running some ads, right? They'll get some traffic and, they'll say, well, of the 10 ads, one of them had 3 clicks, one had 2 clicks, and one had 5, right? And I got no opt-ins. So, none of them worked. I don't know. That's not a whole lot of data, right? That doesn't give me enough to make any sort of educated decision on what's getting better clicks and what gets more opt-ins and what gets more customers and what leads to more customer lifetime value and so on. So make sure you have enough data going through whatever it is you're testing to realize if it's going to work or not.
Yeah. I think, what I've heard from you right now is be patient and gather enough data, basically, before you make
the patience is important, right? But if it's just bleeding money and none of it's working, right? And you're getting a ton of impressions, for example, right? Or a ton of clicks and nothing is working, well, be mindful at some point, you do want to cut that loss and go back to the drawing board and try and figure out what else it can be. There's a whole funnel analysis process that we love to go through that can help you to figure out what the worst performing part of your funnel is so we can zero in on what part to focus our attention on. And using this iterative process that we do, you can improve whatever the funnel is, whether it's a marketing funnel, an HR funnel, an operations funnel. It's, it's the same process we can go through in the business.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure, you have that service offered. I know that's not something we can talk about in this conversation. So I encourage anyone who is interested in this particular topic to get out, reach out to you, get out and, get across to you basically to find out about how to look at your funnels and see what is leaking.
It's exactly what we call them leaky funnels.
Leaky funnels, yeah. So, but Jeremy, one question I'm very interested in is basically, right now we've talked about the common mistakes and how to avoid them. And we've talked about, for me, one thing I've also learned is, that delegating, people putting systems in place and growth. Growth is one big thing I've learned also. If I'm able to put all of this system in place, will I be able to avoid burnout or feeling stressed out often or too often basically, too often than LD? If I'm able to, have all of this in place and I'm able to just, keep my business moving and scaling.
Yeah, so burnout is, unfortunately really common amongst entrepreneurs, especially earlier stage businesses, right?
Mm.
And often this will come down to, a few different mindset things, right? One of them is what we talked about earlier, this idea that you have to do everything. No one can do it as well as you can, and you can't hire someone to do the work that you can, right? Those self-limiting beliefs are going to keep you confined in this box. And even as you grow, that box doesn't get any bigger, right? And so you're going to get right to that burnout. And that's not sustainable, right? So one of the most common ways to solve this is with people and systems, right? So we had someone, who was joining us in our group that I was working with, and in his business, he was a solopreneur, right? And it was important to him to be accessible to his customers, that if they needed him for something, that they could reach him, right? And that's wonderful because look, as small business owners, like it's our personal brand and our name on our business, right? So our clients are really important to us, and they should be, right? So that's a good thing. The problem was, this was also a guy who loved mountain biking. He loved being out in the forests and the mountains and enjoying nature, right? That recharged his soul. That was good for his mental health, his physical health. It was all a really good and important thing for him. But there was no cell phone coverage there. So he stopped going to the mountains and doing what he loved and what recharged him because he felt he had to be there 24/7 for his clients, right? So there's a way to do that that doesn't involve him physically being there. And that was simply bringing on an outsourced customer support person, right? Someone was able to cover business hours for him, that 9 to 5, to answer that phone and respond to customer emails, right? He found someone overseas to do this, taking calls on a US number, responding to emails, very affordable for him to do it that way. And wouldn't you know, he got like 8 hours a day of his life back that he could now do product development. He could do sales, right? He could do business development. He could do visionary work, and he could also get back out in the mountains. So he was able to get back what was so important to him and reclaim time simply by bringing someone on to be that frontline person for him in his business.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Outsourcing. That's very important. Yeah. Wow, Jeremy, I've learned so much from you for this conversation. I really appreciate you being here today. I've learned, how to, scale our business and, make it much more successful, increase our gain without getting burnt out, without, experiencing breakdown or what's not, anything that could affect our health, basically. And I just want to ask, for people out there, for example, who are still at the beginning stage, for example, maybe just out of college, for example, and are still thinking, should I go for a 9 to 5 or should I start that business that has really been on my mind, to start? What would be your advice to them?
That's a really good question, because I think what you'll commonly find out there is people telling you, you should start a business, everyone should have a business. And I actually disagree with that advice. I think everyone could have a business and be an entrepreneur. But look, like entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. Like it's for a select weirdos who want to play that game of business, right? There are challenges. It's not easy. It's powerfully rewarding and wonderful, right? And, it's the lifestyle I've chosen. It's the lifestyle of those I work with that they've chosen, right? But it's not for everyone. So the nice thing, though, is that in general, starting a business or testing an idea out is relatively easy and low cost. So if you have an idea, right, even while you're in school, like I mentioned, my first businesses, my first real businesses, meaning like with real revenue and multiple clients and team members and all, were in my high school years and all the way through college and beyond, right? And in fact, I never finished university. So it was during my second year of university, my business was growing and I put school on hold, right? But it didn't stop me from going to school. I still started while building and growing a business, right? And only when I got to the point where my business was taking up 40 plus hours a week of my time, right? It was growing and building, the team was growing. Only then did I decide to put school on pause, right? If none of that worked, well, we might be having a very different conversation today, right? But I tested it out while not, burning the bridge or throwing out the opportunities, right? So I'm a huge fan of what are called MVPs, or minimum viable products, right? So for our listeners in school or in a career even, and thinking about starting a business, right? Think about like what that might be. Have conversations with your prospective customers, right? Ask them questions. Almost all of my businesses have solved some need that I had in one of my other businesses. And I went out there and I realized that others had that same need too. In fact, I was in a really high-end mastermind group, one of these destination groups that I talk about sometimes, right? Yeah. And we're often, a beautiful luxury destination for a few days, masterminding. And there was a gap I had in one of my businesses. And I tried to find a solution out there. I tried all the different companies that existed, and it wasn't solving the need. So I was asking the other folks in the room, like, hey, here's this idea I have. I'm thinking about building this for my business. If I built this, like, does that solve a need for you as well? And what they told me was, yes, Jeremy, if you build that, we want it as well. So that gave me market product fit validation, told me my idea had traction. That also gave me my first initial handful of beta customers to try out what I was building and give early feedback so I could shape it to those who were going to pay. And then when I decided to actually launch that business, right, when I took on the same day I took on my first expenses as a business was the same day we had new cash flow coming in from those beta customers who now turn into paying customers, right? And that little idea that came up from, a mastermind group I was in where I was filling a need in my own business turned into a multi-million-dollar business. Just from back of the envelope sketch of an idea, talk to some folks about it, realize there's a fit, right? Start trying it out, getting paying customers, and then building and growing it from there. So each one of those little checkpoints was minimizing risk. The more common approach is people go out there and sink everything into developing this brilliant idea they have, and they spend a decade working on it and all their money and time, and then find out nobody wants it. And that kills me. Because that hurts. Like you said, your business is your baby, right? Yeah. To be an inventor and create something nobody wants, that hurts. So don't do that. Test out your idea, even if you're in school, even if you're working a 9 to 5, test it out. It might be a little side hustle at first. It might have some legs. You might get some paying customers. And next thing you know, that might be the next real business for you.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much, Jeremy. So for people out there who still have questions to ask you, maybe wants to still connect with you and work with you, what's the best way to reach out to you? What's the best way to work with you?
Yeah, you can, easily find me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Shapiro, but really a lot of the resources, as well as ways to contact us and everything, is all over at bayareamastermind.com, and that's BAYAREA mastermind.com.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I really appreciate you being here today and sharing so much, about how to become entrepreneurs and gain entrepreneurial freedom. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Love it. Thanks for inviting me on, and great questions. I really enjoyed the show.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought-provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.
Thank you so much. So that's officially the end of the podcast recording. How was it for you?
That was great. I love that. I love the research you've done, the good questions you've had, thoughtfully, put together and all. So kudos on the organization behind it. Nicely done.
Thank you so much.